This is a sink cabinet. This is the left gable, this is the right gable. I've already put the hardware on, but I'll show you that next cabinet I build. So this is for a one door and a front, either a tip out or a false front. So this is the bottom. The dado goes all the way through. On the top you just have rails and they just have small dados. This is also for a mid-rail dado. The two holes are just so that you put the rail the right way, and they're meant to be covered up. You'll see in a minute. So this is a mid-rail. All my rails are plywood. So the solid one, and by I mean solid, this is the top rail, and this is the back rail. And they're specially cut out so plumbers don't have to fight with the cabinet rail to put a sink in. You'll see in a minute. So this rail could go in both two ways. It could go in that way, but that's wrong. The holes are to represent just so you know which way to put the rail. So that's how that sink cabinet mid-rail attaches, okay? So on the top, you have two cutout rails, and they can only go one way. If I put it this way, it's wrong. It's not flush at the top. So they can only go one way. Now it's flush, okay? Make sure that you got the taped edge on the front one, because the back one is reversed and it will go like that. And then when I put the back in, the back will come up into here as you'll see. So we'll put one together. I use 1¼ 18 gauge staples. And I always start with the bottom platform, which looks like this. This is the bottom platform that's dadoed. And it's shallow by 5/8, which is the back runs through. So this fits just like this. For a dry run, I'm doing a dry run, no glue, no staples, right? And then if you look back here, this is where the back comes through. So put one gable aside. And put a generous bead inside, like I mean a good 1/8, 1/4 inch worth of glue. Because it's this shoulder that's hitting that bead of glue. So you want lots in there. Then put a little bead evenly. This is the more important one. This is where all the strength comes from. Put a little bead on that shoulder. And do this on everything you build, drawers, cabinets. Okay, and then set that in and bring it flush. On the tape is the important part at the front. Right here. Just hold that for a second. So then put down a spacer that's 5/8 and turn it over. And you want that spacer there because you're missing 5/8 there. So again, keep your gable square and keep this front edge flush. Okay, let me go over here. So now I'm making sure this is flush, pinch it together, put a staple on center, about 1 inch down. Okay, and just make sure this is tight. Put about 1.5 inches up, and then 2 more. And just take a rag and wipe that off. Now stand this back up carefully. It's still a little fragile, it's strong, but and push this over the bench a little bit. Now you're going to put the back in. The back is what keeps everything square. So this is what the back looks like. They all backs look the same. They're notched here on 4 sides. The center holes are for center on 5/16 for screw pilot holes you'll see in a minute. So I'm just going to dry fit it. So basically the bottom, the rails, and the back should all be the same length from here to here. And if I take my rail is the same length from that notch to that notch. And so is the bottom I just put in. So do a little dry fit. And that sneaks in there. Just like that. Super flush at the bottom. Always be super flush when you put these in. So that's my dry fit. So now I'm going to put a generous bead of glue here. Now I'm not going to do any shoulders on this edge because there is no double ledge shoulder like there is here. It's just one butt joint, glue joint. If I did it on the shoulder, it would be messy and it wouldn't stick to the melamine anyways, and just make a big mess. So flush this up really good there. Okay, so now that I got that, now I'm going to hold this parallel where it should be, and I'm going to put my first staple right here. I'm going to push this back down a bit with my hand, and I'm going to put my first staple right here, center, nice and straight, 5/16 to center, right? And then I'm going to keep this parallel, put a staple in there, and don't worry about this, that happens sometimes. And just take a sanding block, which I'll probably send you one, and just sand that off. And do it right away so you don't forget about it later and it holds you up. So now you just staple this all the way down, make sure it's flush. You might have to push or pull, might be slightly bowed, but make sure it's flush. So about every 8 inches staples, like 5 down this size, 4 down the 2 foot depth. Okay, so now that I've secured the back to the bottom, I'm gonna turn it up again. And now I've got to staple the gable to the back on this side. So I'm gonna pull it tight, pinch it, and put a staple right here. And then I'm going to put pressure on it so I'm pushing the back tight into the cabinet. I'm going to fan that off. So now the back is kept everything square. So now the one gable, the bottom, and the back are every piece is square. And when you put them together tight and flush as you go, everything is perfectly square. So now, next step is we want to put the rails in. And then put the last gable on last. I'm going to tip this up. I'm going to overhang it so I can get my staple gun underneath there. I'm going to put a generous bead in there. Okay. And I'm going to kind of dry fit so I make sure I'm gluing the right side. I want that one. Don't forget to glue the shoulders. That's where all the strength comes from. Sometimes I forget and I go, oh no, did I glue that? Even though it's strong enough without doing it. So now, I'm gonna make sure that's good and flush, and I covered those two holes, right, with the ledge. Now I'm gonna put 2 staples and leave room for a screw in the middle. So I put 2 staples here and here. So now we're going to do this one. So on the back, the only tape on it is this little nub here. Make sure you got the right one. Glue that shoulder, slip that in flush. Now you want to pull it tight down and to the back. Pull it flush to the back. And put a staple in right there. And then staple up. Then staple this parallel flush. Then go to the middle because this will be bowed. Pull it flush and tight. Put 5 in. Okay, now you put this rail in last. Don't forget to sand your little nubbin. Okay, so generous bead of glue. Glue the shoulder. Don't worry about the glue squeezing out somewhere and just clean it up after. Okay, so last step is to put the last gable on. So now start with the glue in these joints. And put a bead down the center. Always glue this part first before you glue all the shoulders up here. So if you run your finger, you can just get a nice even little bead. You don't want a whole lot. Just want to get a little bead on the bottom. And don't forget the rails, got a little shoulder. Okay, sneak the bottom, the gable, onto the bottom first. Get that started. Push it to the front right away, flush at the front, and fit these in. Just like Lego, man. Take that. Okay, so see how this never came together tight when I stapled it? It bounced. So I want to fix that now with a clamp, see? And pull that down tight. Now, if it was a smaller cabinet, I'd just staple it this way, but it's kind of big. So I'm going to turn it. Now, I'm just going to make sure this is flush. Put 2 staples, because I'll put a screw in after there if I want to. You don't need to. Sometimes I do. Nice and flush there. And then don't forget about the back here. So I'm going to squeeze it together. And don't forget about this. Wipe that glue off. And that's it, that's the sink cabinet. The hardware is already on. Here's where the tip out hardware goes. This one doesn't get it, but I'll show you. So I'm going to send you this hardware even though you might not use it, but then you'll have it. It's really good hardware, and it goes with a Euro screw, which is about 12 millimeters long, and it goes like this, and it's adjustable. So I always put a spacer underneath. I always put like an 1/8 inch or a 1/4 inch, doesn't matter. I usually do an 1/8, just so you have some up and down adjustment. And then you use these Euro screws in the pre-drilled hole. Okay, you might not have room for these, but I'm gonna send them anyways. And then you have an option, right?
So are we done?
So, no. So this particular cabinet, sink cabinet, has a false front. Oh, and he cut it a little too big. So he did that for the rail turning the other way. You know what I mean? He made it too big, actually. Doesn't fit. But anyways, if this fit, I would put it in and have it stick out just an 1/8 of an inch. And then when you mount your drawer front, it's the same depth out as your doors, because there's an 1/8 of an inch between your doors and your cabinet. So you can do it that way too, but I didn't send you a piece for the front, I don't think. I'm gonna send you tip outs. Okay, so that's the sink cabinet, and then I'm gonna show you an upper cabinet.